Good evening and welcome back to the AfriCanadian Resource Center. As we do every evening, we bring you the resources, we bring you updates in the community, focusing specifically within the African Canadian community. And tonight, we are not going to do any different. We're going to bring you individuals in the community who are taking on the leadership as in terms of making sure that the community has all the services that it needs. And so that's, we're going to have an interview shortly with our very own, and this is our chairman, but also a person who is doing so much in the community, like has hands in so many different areas, and we are so glad and proud to have him here. But before we do that, as we do every night, we are going to start with the news, as we want to make sure that you are up to date with what's going on in the community. One of the first thing we wanted to focus on is, of course, the COVID-19. The numbers right now, as we look, it says that as of today, Thursday, Canada has about 160,229 cases of coronavirus COVID-19. Here in Ontario, here in Ontario, says that Premier Doug Ford announced that a temporary pay raise for personal support workers with about $3 per hour, more for 50,000 workers for long-time care homes. This is for PSW working in hospital, who will receive also $2 per hour raise. And the raise is going to come in effect as of October 1st. And it will last until March 2021. Again, with the news, Ontario reported about 538 new cases of COVID-19 on Thursday. Of course, this is better than what we had yesterday, and then the other day we had about 700 plus 700 numbers. So you can see we are starting again to go back to the numbers are getting lesser and lesser because of the measures that have been put in place. So let's hope that this continues. And as we say, experts have now said that they're expecting new cases of COVID-19 to reach about 1,000 in October. Obviously, this is if the numbers are going to go up, that's scary. But let's hope we don't reach those numbers. We'll have to look more into that as to why the experts are looking at it and thinking we're going to get 1,000 cases in October, because right now we are at 538. The last piece of news that we wanted to bring you is on the vaccine. It says the vaccines normally offered in schools to grade 7 students will instead be delivered at community clinics and doctors at the doctor's offices in parts of the province, meaning that parents will have to make arrangements to ensure their children are immunized. I think for me this is a good decision, because again, even though we all want these vaccines to be available, these are choices that are supposed to be made by parents, not the schools, not the government. Every individual should have the choice whether they want to take the vaccines or not. So to make a decision to take it out of the hands of the school onto the parents' decisions, I think it's a good idea, and it is something that we really appreciate for the government to make this decision. This is here in Ontario, by the way. We do not know how other provinces are dealing with these kind of decisions. But again, even talking about vaccines right now is something that we did not think we'll be talking about. I mean, we hope that the coronavirus will have gone away, so we didn't have to be talking about vaccines, but it seems like we really have to wait and have this vaccine before we can get out of this war, as we spoke about yesterday. So yeah, that's a little bit of the news that we have for you tonight. We're going to go for a quick commercial, and then we'll come back with our interview tonight. Then, of course, we have another program later on that we prepared for you that we believe you are going to enjoy. Let's do the commercial.
A message from the Government of Canada.
Welcome back. And as I told you from the top of the show, tonight I'm bringing you an interview with Mr. Moses Gashirabake, who is a Rwandan Canadian who has been working in the community from the day one I met him about 4 years ago. Obviously, he has been working in the community before that. He's a young man who is really someone I look up to. I always joke with him, I'm like, you're my big brother, because a lot of the work that he's doing, I look up to, and I really appreciate his work in the community. And so we wanted, before I even bring Moses on, I wanted to give you a little bit of the intro by looking at the video that we found online. I'm sure Moses is going to tell us a little bit about this video. But it shows you that he's been working from day one. And so let's check out the video, and then we'll come back with an interview on the other side.
The journey through the Congo to Kenya was extremely difficult. I was a very young kid at the time, and I obviously noticed that there had been a drastic change into our lives. I grew up as a stateless refugee in Kenya, but luckily it never stopped me from going to school. Eventually I decided to come and study in Montreal. I never completely knew how I was gonna finance my education and continue on with the journey that I had started.
He had faced some adversity in his personal life, and he was really trying to make it work, trying to come to the Faculty of Law. And the more I was in contact with him, the more I realized that what was holding him back from coming were financial constraints.
Through McGill, I got an entrance scholarship for academic merit and leadership. And slowly by slowly, I was able to come back into my full energy and the ability to continue my education. Obviously, at the first moment that I spoke about my experience, it was extremely tough. But as I moved along, the second time, the third time, the fourth time, it became a little bit easier and easier. And then it came from me feeling as if I was a victim to actually feeling as if I was empowered. And now, at this moment, I feel as if it's a responsibility for me to educate about abuses of human rights. The scholarships that I got, right from the start when I got into McGill, it means somebody had to give the money, and I'm going to do the same. Crossing the stage was magical for me, and obviously all the people that were involved in my journey, my family, my professors, friends, and many other people that I met through the community.
There really is something magical about McGill, and I think that gift back is what has allowed McGill to remain a world leader among universities.
Always on a mission, as I always say, Mr. Moses Gashirabake. Welcome, Mr. Moses. How are you?
Yeah, thank you, Kizito. That video took me back to McGill University. Thank you. It's a pleasure to connect and to see the work that the Rwandan Canadian Healing Center has been doing. We've been doing together. It's an unprecedented time in the world history, and I'm glad we can be able to work together with the Rwandan Canadian community and other African communities in Canada to do good. So thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. It's our pleasure. And I wanted to just start there with that video because for me, a lot of the work obviously you've done before I knew who you were. And I feel like you've always been on a mission. What got you to think about, because I think it's one thing to go and pursue education, which you did in hard times, and you were able to pursue it and achieve your goal. Now you're a practicing lawyer. What got you to think, you know what, no matter what, I can do this, regardless of the challenges that you're going through?
Yeah, thank you, Kizito. Yeah, obviously, my story is the story of so many Rwandans, millions and millions of Rwandans, and we're talking about Rwandans that left the country even before 1959, Rwandans that left the country in 1994. and the hardships and the struggles that Rwandans went through definitely shaped them to become who they are in one way or another. So I would say the pursuit for education for me was partly to understand why nation states become nation states and how they are run, and how do you create a successful democracy, if you put it that way. And then the other inspiration that I got early on as a kid in high school was the story of Nelson Mandela, who, despite apartheid and lack of freedoms for the South African people, he never gave up, and at one point in his life, he said education is the most powerful weapon that you could use to change the world. And essentially, that phrase resonated with me. And I said, with education, I could be able to understand who I am, who my community is, what my country is, and what even the international communities are, the different nation states, and how some nations succeed, others fail, and how we can use education to come together and build successful countries. So essentially, that was my inspiration, going through hardship as a stateless refugee, having to grow up without a country, if you put it that way, and then reconnecting with my very own country and the people, and just realizing that working together and using knowledge and science is actually what makes nations succeed.
Mm. So, and obviously now you're in the community, you're doing the work, you didn't graduate, you didn't become a lawyer and said, you know what, I'm just going to take care of me, I'm going to focus on what I can do for myself. You continued to work in the community, which is how you and I met through your organization, the International Rwandan Youth for Development. And of course, you're doing so many other things in the community, or you sit on so many boards of directors. I guess I could ask you about that and ask you what are those kind of positions you sit on. But instead of that, I'm going to ask you, because you're doing that work in the community, why do you think it's important for young people like you at the age that you started? Because you're still young, but I'm talking about even from the time you're in university. Why do you think it's important for young people like you to get involved in their civic duties? What's the one message maybe you can give to young people to be involved in community service?
Yeah, thank you, Kizito. I think, as you grow up, you're training from a theoretical perspective, but then I think most learning happens when you actually practice what you're learning. Because for me, learning through practice is enjoyable. And the question you've asked, why should young people participate in community service and nation building and in essentially, trying to make things better, not just for themselves, but to so many other fellow citizens and countrymen. For me, really is understanding that, if it's not me, then the decisions are going to be made by other people that are going to impact me either positively or negatively. So if I want to be able to learn and also influence decisions, then I have to be at the table. So essentially, it just started as a journey to learn. I was, before going to law school, I studied political science as a pre-law exercise. So I also have a bachelor's degree in political science. And for me, just having the theory was important, but adding a practical component and being engaged not just within my own Rwandan community, but also other Canadian organizations, such as my student union, other non-profit organizations that were doing work in human rights, in genocide prevention, in democracy building. I found that to be quite essential, because you're not only improving on your skills, but you're also participating in changing your community and being part of decisions that are going to impact not just you but other people. So it's essentially what many people say that if you're not at the decision table, then you might be on the menu. So people will be discussing decisions that are going to affect you. And then when things became even much more sophisticated, I understood that right now I'm a Canadian citizen, as most Rwandan Canadians are in Canada, and I also hold Rwandan citizenship. We realized that we pay taxes to either the municipal government, the provincial government, and the federal government. So this is public money that essentially we all contribute to enable the different levels of government to deliver services. And when you go deeper, it becomes every citizen's responsibility to hold accountable the government, either through working through a civil society organization such as the Rwandan Canadian Healing Center, or even joining a political party, right, or working in a university or other community or public institutions, and essentially, giving advice or providing your opinion as to how those public funds can be spent. And recently, and this is something that has been extremely hard in Canada, many Black communities across Canada were working in their various community organizations, which is quite commendable. But they also, added another layer recently that essentially was advocating for the needs of the Black community in a much more forceful way. And I think, this is why recently we got the government of Canada funding, mental health capacity building for community organizations. And this is essentially because citizens such as you and me and many others across Canada advocated, through their own civic organizations, advocated that the government of Canada thinks of empowering Black communities and people of color to also, be able to participate in Canada as full citizens in the Canadian economy. So essentially, the most fulfilling outcome of participating in community work is being able to see the results, and the results of not just one, but many people coming together to advocate for the common good.
Absolutely. And I think one thing you said that has been a theme this week is if you're not on the table, you're on the menu, as you said. And I think one of the things I've found within the community, even here in Toronto, a lot of our young people sometimes they tend to say, you know what, I don't want to be in politics. I just want to do community work. And I'm like, if you are a human being living in any country, you're automatically in politics. The question is whether you want to be involved in those decisions, as you said, or whether you want other people to make the decisions for you. And I think that's something we really need to communicate in our communities, because whether you're in business, whether you're an artist and you're in fashion or whatever, if you're not involved in civics, if you're not involved in politics and policy making, someone else is making those decisions for you. The question is, are you happy with it, or do you want to be involved? And I think that's what you and myself have decided to do. We want to be involved in what comes to our community, especially because, of course, being in the Black community, being in the African community, a lot of the time we are left out of these tables. And so, especially for you as a person who is involved in these kind of decisions, my question maybe for you, especially during COVID-19, is what are the available resources that you feel like members of the Continental African Canadian community, Rwandan community should know about, prepare for, to actually be able to kind of get under from these challenges of COVID-19 and face a better recovery, for example, compared to what we faced in 2008 when the market crashed? What are the available resources you might say that members of our communities should be looking at in the coming days?
Yeah, thank you, Kizito. There's definitely many resources that have been put together either by the government of Canada or different not-for-profit organizations, the big not-for-profits, or a collaboration between either the government of Canada or the different provincial and territorial governments, or even municipal governments across Canada that are available for either the general public or specifically the Black community or other racialized communities. So obviously the one that everybody knows is the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. If you've lost your job due to COVID-19, or if you're self-employed and you are looking for income support, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit was implemented, and it came to an end on September 27th. And as of yesterday, the government of Canada implemented the Canada Response Benefit, which is going to replace the Canada Emergency Response Benefit for those people who do not qualify for regular employment insurance. So this benefit, provides $2,000 at the minimum if you've lost your job due to COVID-19. And I think, this is something that our fellow members of the Black community can, and the African-Canadian community can take advantage of. And the most challenging thing with our community is a good number of us, do not file their income tax. And in order for the government, through Canada Revenue Agency or Service Canada, to be able to quickly determine if you qualify for these, then somebody has to submit a tax return at the end of the year. So maybe one of the messages that we need to put as the Rwandan Canadian Healing Center is to encourage, in many African languages, to encourage our communities to file their taxes. So that's an income support that is available. And then recently, the government of Canada announced $321 million, Black. So this is an amount of money that is available for Black entrepreneurs across Canada. So if you have a business or if you're looking to start a business, you can be able to access these funds. And one of the other critical things is that traditionally, unfortunately, due to systemic racism, the Black community has not been able to access funding, either a loan to expand your business or a loan to start your business. We've had traditional accesses through either the Business Development Bank of Canada or recently Futurepreneur that provides up to $60,000 for somebody who wants to start a business. But unfortunately, they they have to check your credit. For some newcomers to Canada, they don't, in most cases, somebody comes to Canada, they don't have an established credit. So there have been many loopholes, or not loopholes, but actually barriers that either entrepreneurs or newcomers of African descent specifically, at a very high rate, who want to start a business, but they don't have access to either a loan to start or a loan to expand your business. So 321 million resources available, and encouraging our community members to be able to access that type of support that is available through the government of Canada. And this is historic. It has never happened in the history of Canada, where the government of Canada looks at the gaps that have been existing in the system and provide a funding up to $321 million. I mean, this is historical. And when the fund was announced, this was something that resonated across Canada. And of course, there are other supports available for students. the Canada Emergency Students Response, which has been available and I think is going to continue to be available. And once we develop, the platform, we'll be able to have all that information in many languages, African languages, so that the various community members can be able to access that type of information. And then, there are other supports available, which I think even the Rwandan Canadian Healing Center benefited from. So the COVID-19 emergency support funds that were sent to community organizations across Canada, either if you're a non-profit organization or if you're a charity, you could go to the Red Cross if you're a not-for-profit organization, or the Community Foundations of Canada if you are a charity, or even I think Centraid, to access the funds. I think it's $350 million to allow not-for-profit organizations that are providing essential services to Canadians. So these are some of the opportunities available. So we'll be able to talk about more in terms of the provincial side and the municipal side of things once we set up the platform and be able to share the information with the rest of our community members. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Moses. And Moses, of course, as our chairman, he's talking about the AfriCanadian Resource Center that we're developing right now. And all of this coverage that we're doing every day from 6 to 7 p.m. is a part of that resource center. Once we have it up, all of the coverage we've been doing for the last few weeks and for the next 2 months and a half is all going to be on that platform. All of the resources that you're mentioning, Moses, are all going to be there. And of course, I actually also want to update that today they announced that the second phase of that $350 million is actually up for, it's going to be start rolling again. So for community members who maybe missed the first one or who applied like we did as the Rwandan Canadian Healing Center, who would like to apply again, because the phase one was more response, then the phase two would be recovery. This is the time for you to do so. Moses, my last question for you as we have running out of time. So in terms of the work that's being done in the community, maybe focus on us as an organization, where do you see us going in the next, let's say in the next year, based on the challenges we're facing as through the COVID-19, but also maybe put it all together in terms of the challenges we've always faced as a Black organization. Where do you see us going in the next year or so?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Kizito. I think in the next couple of years, despite the challenges we've had with capacity and capacity in terms of funding streams, but thankfully, we've worked on project number one with the government of Canada through Canadian Heritage, and now the second project that's looking at the emergencies that community organizations are facing, where we're now developing the AfriCanadian Resource Center. And now I think the phase that we're going through will essentially be recovery, but also looking at eventually creating a physical space. So a center that could either be housed in Toronto or housed in Ottawa, Gatineau, or housed even in Montreal, or even in all of those cities in Western Canada. So we're looking to be able to hopefully expand, build more capacity and bring on more diverse voices, strengthen our governance structures and hopefully even hire permanent staff. I think that's where the future lies, and with commitment, working extremely hard and ensuring that we have a system, a strong system that works. I think, the sky is the limit. I looked at where we began from a few years ago with, $0. Our organization started essentially with a walk from Toronto to Montreal. That's, for me, that's, the conception of the formal organization began for me, even though maybe the organization started way before, during, the journey that we went through, fighting PTSD, fighting mental health. And now I think we're in motion. And that commitment and continuing to strengthen our capacity and our ability to deliver more services to our communities, I think is crucial. And I'm looking forward to the day when we will be opening our center, a home where people can come and find resources that are going to help them heal. Most African Canadian communities have gone through tremendous trauma, and I think now we need a dedicated service that's going to look at our problems in a customized way. Because, you know, mental health, unfortunately, there are many resources available through the Canadian Mental Health Commission, Health Canada, and many other organizations. But, you know, we need those funds to be specifically dedicated to people that have, you know, gone through the struggle and people that, you know, understand the specificities of African Canadians. And I think the Rwandan Canadian Healing Center fills that gap and fills that important platform that now from the Canadian Resource Center, we're now going to have a physical space that can continue doing the work, where we can have researchers, we can have creatives, videographers, we can even have social workers and hopefully psychiatrists that are specialized in the mental health of African Canadians and be able to do even more and more. So I'm really excited what's coming ahead and looking for what we can be able to do.
Absolutely, Moses. Thank you so much. Thank you as a person who was glad and happy to have you on board for this organization, but also working with you every day. I don't know, maybe one day I'll get a chance to be able to thank you for the way you deserve, but today I would like to thank you for having joined us and having taken your time off. I know you're a busy man. And so one last question is, where can people find you, and whether it's on social media or just in your regular business work?
Yeah, thank you, Kizito. I mean, on Twitter, I'm on Twitter, Moses Gashirawatie, and I'm on Instagram as well, Moses Gashirawatie, or you can send me a message through my email, moses.gashirawatie@gmail.com. So, you know, looking forward to engaging and continuing to work to improve our communities. And I want to thank you too, Kizito, for the commitment and the work that you've put in. It's not an easy job to run an organization that's, you know, rapidly evolving and wanting to do more with the, you know, limited resources that we have. So I want to thank you as well for the work that you do and for having me here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. So we're going to quickly go to a commercial. Moses, we appreciate you, and we hope to see you again. Of course, we hope to have you again on this program again. We're here for 3 months, so we definitely would hope to have you again, and hopefully with new updates, whether it's on COVID, whether it's on the community. You have your hands in so many places, and we hope to get those resources from you to the audience. So thank you once again for joining us, Moses.
It will be my pleasure.
All right, let's go for a commercial.
A coronavirus is a type of virus that can infect the respiratory tract, meaning the nose, mouth, throat, sinuses, or lungs. There are many types of coronaviruses, and most cause only mild illness, such as the common cold. But some coronaviruses can cause severe illness. The most likely way people can become infected is by droplets that contain the virus. These droplets carry the virus into the air and can enter through the nose, mouth, throat, and lungs of a person who is within 6 feet or 2 meters. The virus infects the lungs, causing the lungs to become inflamed. The alveolar sacs have to be healthy for the body to breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. Infection of the virus causes damage to the cells of the lungs and triggers an inflammatory reaction. Fever may develop. With severe inflammation, inflammatory fluid fills the lungs. This reduces the function of the alveoli, resulting in coughing and difficulty breathing. The oxygen level in the blood may decrease. In some people who become severely ill, other organs may be affected, such as the kidneys or the heart.
We thank Moses for having joined us, and obviously, as you can see, so much information. He's very diverse as far as the information that he has, and so we hope to have individuals like him every night wherever we can. And we want to remind you, if you have anyone that would like to be on our program to provide resources, to let us know where we can help our community go for these kinds of resources, please let us know. Send us a message on our social media. Let anyone who is interested in being on our program also shoot us a message, or just let us know how we can visit you in the community. Without going far, I would like to bring you a program that we have tonight, and that program is, we wanted to also bring you, as Moses was talking about, the healing. How do we go through healing journeys? What are the tools, the resources that are available, whether it's online or just in our everyday community? So today, with our team, we sort of put together a video that can help you understand yourself better. And so it's going to be over about half an hour. We want you to sit down, get a tea, just sit and listen, and hopefully go and take an action so you can help yourself understand yourself better, and that way it allows you to also operate best in the community, at home, and wherever you are. So let's go to the video.
Welcome, guys. If you remember, my name is Likum. I am the assistant slash producer slash pack mule slash whatever. So along with talking about healing, which is really what we're trying to do here, we need to talk about the steps to that. And one of those steps is getting to know each other and getting to know ourselves. And a big part of that, not just for me, but for kids as well, is personality, and how to figure that out and test. And of course, that goes to higher ideas of spirituality and consciousness. But this is just where we really start. And I really like to start with the MBTI. Of course, it's not a perfect thing, but it is actually a close approximation. And for me personally, I know I've done this, and you've done it as well too. Yeah. And you feel a kinness to it. Just to be more clear though, while they say it's personality test, this is really about how you work information, how you judge things, more so than whether your behavior is whether or not you like pie. So I mean, there's no test in the world that will say whether you like pie unless it asks you whether you like pie. Yeah. But without further, we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about Kiz and me and myself. So actually, Kiz is what they would call an INFJ. What that stands for is introverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging. Now the funny thing is, we are almost right there by ourselves. So I'm an INFP, that's introverted, intuition, feeling, and perceiving. Now, I kind of don't feel like I always am that. I feel like I'm something else, but honestly, that's also part of the personality type.
What do you feel like you are most of the time?
So I feel like it switches and it changes. Sometimes I feel like I'm an INFJ, sometimes I feel I'm more extroverted. Okay. But actually, that's part of being an INFP. I'm so into myself like that, in the sense that like I'm always like, I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere.
You're all over the place.
Exactly. Yeah. But just so everyone knows a little bit more, we can talk about this, because I feel like we do talk about extroversion and introversion a lot, but we use them in the wrong way. So a good example is we're both introverts, but I'm sure if you saw either of us on camera, you'd be like, what? Introverts? Look at how cool these guys talk and act.
I know, you would never imagine. Many people who have seen me throughout the years, when I say I'm an introvert, they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm an introvert. Like literally, like if it wasn't for the work or the camera, I'm just a chill person. I don't want to be out there. I want to be in my own corner, do my own thing. As you're going to explain, I live in my own head.
Exactly. No, exactly. That's exactly it. And I'm the same way. I love people. I love meeting people and doing stuff. But I obviously like our own time. And it's really about where your energy is at. So when you're talking about extroversion versus introversion, introverts are very focused on the internal world and their internal energy, whereas extroverts are focused on what's going on outside of their external. That's where they get their energy from. So that's really the main difference. So the next one, which we also have in common, is intuition versus sensing. Now, with intuition versus sensing, it gets a little bit more complicated. Let's start with sensing. So that's the thing neither of us are, which is probably not great for work, I'll be honest. But so
tell us why isn't like having sensing.
So sensing is essentially just your five senses, what you hear, smell, taste, and it's the idea that that information is what's important. Yeah. The opposite of that is intuition. Intuition is kind of just a feeling.
So you and I are both intuitive.
Yeah, we're both very intuitive people. We're the kind of people where you'd ask us, oh, why are you doing that? And if we don't have the language for it, we're just like, it's just.
I knew that felt like something I had to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And I guess the work for us is kind of building up the language to actually express it.
I would say this, most people, I don't know, you know that I'm doing the Mexico walk. I did the walk to Montreal. Anybody who ever asked me, like, why are you doing that? At first, I never had an answer. because it felt that's the essence of what I was feeling.
Really
it didn't make sense,
yeah,
but it felt like I had to do it.
Exactly.
So it kind of makes sense.
And I mean, the thing about that is, it's not that one has logic and one doesn't. It's just what we value in that logic. So I guess a good example for me is, well, when I was going to school, when I did my master's, when I was getting in, I didn't go in saying, oh, you know, you need to make money to survive, to do this, blah, blah, blah. It was more so just like, I need to go. I need that knowledge. I need that. It's more so at that level, but it's a lot more difficult than that as well. So the next one, and we can go to, is thinking and versus feeling. And again, we're both feelers. So I mean, this kind of is self-explanatory to most people. It really is the difference between basing everything off a feeling, something like intuition, but more so how we want to be and how we make decisions in a sense. So I mean, obviously, look at the work we're doing here. You're basing this off people, and you want to make the world a better place. And I'm very much the same way. Of course, it's not that thinkers don't want to make the world a better place, and obviously none of this is one or the other. This is all in a spectrum. But generally what we'd say is thinkers are more into organization.
Yeah, it's more calculated, everything.
Exactly.
I feel like for me, maybe speaking for myself, a lot of the decisions I've made had to have a goal, which I think you're going to talk about earlier, where some people are like, okay, this makes sense to me today, I'm going to do it. For me, it can't just make sense today. It has to make sense tomorrow, next year, 5 years from now. If I don't see it make sense 10 years from now, most likely I might not be able to do it, because it all has to fit within that box of, you know, like, does it fit? I think there was another, you know, I don't want to jump ahead of myself, maybe get there first.
Hey, I'm excited too, don't get me wrong. But yeah, no, just to round it all off, essentially, one, let's just say, horrible thing about both of us is people like us, if we don't feel it, we don't do it. And feelings can be flighty. You don't always have them forever. Actually, your type is a little better with it than mine, because you're a bit more future oriented. But that if you don't feel it, it might not happen. But at the same time, it also allows you to do incredible things when you do have that.
When you have that fire.
Exactly.
Passion.
Exactly. Okay, and then the last one is the only place we actually change. That's judging versus perceiving.
What sucks is the only place where we differentiate, I end up with the one that is, you know, I would prefer being more of a perceiver than a judger, but hey.
In my opinion, the difference in this is why he's the boss and I'm not, but. So if we're talking about, so as you can see, obviously the J in his, he's the judging and I'm perceiving. So the difference within that is judges are way more, in a sense, organized and based towards a goal. If you think of a forest and a path, there's one path to the end of the forest. Now, obviously, there's good in that. That means you get stuff done. And like I was saying before, you do tend to get stuff done better. INFJs, you don't get as discouraged as we do, because we are perceivers. We like different angles, doing different things, trying different methods. And because that, we're very bad at finishing.
So if anything happens that discourages you, you know what, I have another option.
Exactly. We always have a way out.
For me, it's like, it's just this, baby. There's nothing else. If this doesn't work out, there is no failure for me.
Exactly.
If I fail, it's more of a lesson to try it again.
And then you have to try again. Whereas I'm like, if I fail, sure, I fail, but then I just have to go around another way. For me, failure is the idea that you have to try something different. For you, failure is the idea you have to try harder at the same thing. So that's really the basic difference. But to be all honest, these main words over here don't really mean as much into kind of discussing. So what we're planning to do is actually take you into these random things over here. I don't know if you guys can see them. So these are called cognitive functions, and they're actually arranged perfectly from what's more dominant to what's least dominant. So first one is more dominant, second one is you use it but not as much, third one is you kind of use it, and the fourth one is something you really need to work on. And these different things really develop who you are. And this is actually, given our so close in this and this, we're actually very different in our cognitive functions. If you actually look, I put numbers over here. That's because everything you're good at in cognitive functions, I am bad at, and vice versa, in the exact order. So I always find that really funny. But instead of just me going step by step, I think it's just better to have a full conversation about it. So one major difference you find with INFJs and INFPs is sort of like analytics versus artistic. So just to be more clear, anything that is an F or a T is how we judge things. So the feeling and the thinking is how we make judgment calls. As well, so anything that is sensing or intuitive, that's just how we take in information, whether we just kind of know it or whether we need to feel it, see it, whatever from other sides.
Yeah.
So just to go with yours specifically, we first start with introverted intuition, which basically means that how you are intuitive with you internally. So whenever you are making, let's say, a judgment call or something, it is from you. It is from
based
here.
on what my internal world.
Exactly. It is really based on your internal world.
Yeah.
Whereas we can see from mine is based off information. Mine is based off my dominance. So this is how we are at first. This is our first thing where our conscious goes first. Mine is about how I feel. So before I do anything, I always have to stop and then say, how do I feel about this? How does it make me feeling? Should I do it? Even when I got the great job author, thank you again. It was, my first thought was, I feel great. You know, this is great. This is good. Whereas maybe for you, something like that with introverted intuition, you would be like, does this work for me? Does this work for my goals?
Is the decision I'm making, should I, like, is this where I want to go?
Exactly.
Or is there like another option?
Exactly.
I don't automatically feel like you in terms of celebrate. That's another thing too, like celebrating as soon as something good happens is not something I know how to do, which is weird because you would assume when something good happens, the first thing you do is celebrate, right? For me, it's like there's a lot of calculations that are internal that actually do happen all the time when something good happens. You know.
I mean, there's truth to power and all that. So the second one, this is sort of like, let's say this is 100% you, this is like 75% you.
Okay.
So it's things that do come up, but it's not too big. So now that we're both going down, we actually switched. So this is about you and information, how you take that in, and it's about me and how I make decisions. So with you, how you take in information, or how you kind of, not decide, but essentially how you value things comes from the outside world. Because the outside world, the feeling of the outside world. So sort of, if the world is giving you pain, then you will see pain and you will work on pain. So it's sort of, I think we were talking about this earlier, you're more of, you're a sponge, you take in people's feelings.
Like for me, if I'm in an environment where like there's something happening, if it's good, I'm gonna be feeling upbeat and everything. If it's bad, like if obviously coming from Rwanda, having gone through the genocide, and this is something I learned better, but the idea of seeing what took place in '94, for me, all of it was in here. It sort of got in here and boiled up for many years. And so, but that's just an even extreme example. If it's just somebody who is sad, and I see that, or they talk to me, automatically I feel sad. And that's something that for many years I wish I didn't have, because I feel like, you know what, yes, somebody's sad, you can help them, but you don't necessarily have to feel that.
Of course.
But for me, it's automatic. It's just, so I guess that's the idea of learning these things and knowing why do you sort of have those characteristics, and so that we can learn to use them for the better, you know?
Exactly. And I'm sure it becomes tiresome having to live with that. There's the saying of like, you guys have a battery of emotion, and you use it on so many people that you don't have any left for yourself.
How about you? What is yours? So with the N.
So mine is extroverted intuition. And this, like I said before, this is because it's intuition. It's about how I see things. You know, I'm very outward looking at things like that. So when I want, like, this makes us very good at change, in the sense of like, my change is what I see in the world, and it's a bit more, in a sense, logical than feeling, in a sense, but it's still the same idea of there's what I see going on in the world, and everything is flowing through that. How I perceive everything flows through that, and it really just goes on like that forever. And it's just how I take in the info of things based off the world.
You're basing it on the environment and how and the information, as opposed to how you feel.
Exactly. So a good example is just to give everybody back home. So when I joined in, obviously there was a certain structure of how we were going to do this, and this structure was based off your vision, your internal.
Absolutely.
Right there. So because of that, you wanted to try harder and harder, and that worked really well. Whereas I was like, I used to love marketing as a kid. I used to want to be a marketer. What kid wants to be a marketer? I have no idea, but
now when you're smart, you want to do those kind of.
I mean,
you know, like,
it changed, but but basically part of that was me seeing something and looking at the world and be like, does that make sense? So even with the show, I was like, you know what? If we're gonna reach youth, we gotta be a little more of this, we gotta be a little more of that, because that's how I see it. But it needs to flow from a vision, which is really good that we have you.
And that's why for me, I was even telling you earlier, as long as we get to the goal, which is to communicate and share resources here, and I need to specific for this one, but for anything that I do, I'm always willing to take in those new ways, because I believe, once I believe that you can achieve what you're proposing, we're all in.
It goes to a larger thing of extrovert intuition. I only have information if I'm out in the world. If I'm at home all day, I have no information. That's why I can never be a true introvert in that sense, because I need that information. I need to be out in the world to get it.
The funny, I guess the difference between you and I is, for me, all of it is here. Like I spend so much time in here that I feel like I have so much. I was even saying before, we were having like these different panels online the last few months. I mean, I feel like I have so much to say, but at the same time, I'm like, is there like a platform for me to sort of say this kind of stuff and communicate the same way that you would say, like in terms of whether you want to be an influencer or you just want to just motivate people, inspire people. But I have so much because I've spent so much just trying to understand myself and understand the world. So like definitely, of course I still want to go out into the world and find books and read and research, but I take so much time just keeping it in here first.
Of course, and never look at this as exhaustive. We're all different. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But I mean, I guess the way I explain it the best is I'm the kind of guy where I'm up at 7, I go out into the world, I experience it, I come back home, and I'm grabbing my tea in bed, and I'm just thinking about what I've experienced. And I'm thinking about that. Whereas you're, on the other hand, you will think through the day, and then you'll go out and you'll see someone sad, and you'll be like, okay, well, using the information I have internally, I'm gonna do something about it. Exactly. So I mean, that's literally the difference. So yeah, if we go to the next one, after that, this is the tertiary. So with the tertiary, it's like maybe 50%, a bit less. It's something that you use, but it's not
as much.
Exactly. It's not demanding. It's not as demanding. And with this, you're introverted thinking. So again, thinking again is about how you judge things, and because you're judging it internally, it's about you putting together those connections in your head, making that map. So it's like everything's connected. You know, everything leads to something, leads to this, leads to that, and because of that, you're so able to look. You look for connections in everything. For good and bad, you look for there needs to be.
Has to be a meaning.
There's a whole. And I think that whole brings people to a lot of spiritual places. It brings people to this idea of like, hey, this means that, and also makes you more empathetic, because you're like, you feel that what I do matters to that person, matters to that person, and that should all go together.
And I'll say this, until I actually discovered that part of me actually following that voice, because I've always had that voice of you got to be a seeker, you've got to be able to go around and search and understand the world and the universe, right? Until I was able to actually embrace that voice, I was lost, man. I was just all over the place. Like if you look at me from the time I was like 15 to 20 to 25, and now I'm more of the person that I was when I was like 12 years old and 13 years old. I'm actually that person now.
So funny.
Thank you so much. We wanted to run the whole program that we prepared for you tonight, but we're running out of time. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that on our website in the next few days. It's at rchc.ca/resources. We're going to put it there, and then you can watch it. The other thing we encourage you to do is maybe go to anywhere online and go do the 16 personality test that allows you to actually do the test, that allows you to do the test and find out who you are. So as you notice, for me, I'm an INTF, what is it again? Please. INFJ, that is who I am. I've just been introduced to this recently, so it's a bit, I always forget about which one is which. But you can learn about yourself, learn what it means for you, and then of course, learn other forms of personal development programs as well. The reason why we brought you this tonight is because we want to help you find out the strengths, the weaknesses, and the tools that you can use to actually develop yourself through anything. For me, it was more about going through PTSD and understanding what are the tools that I can use to get to the level that I want to be. So yeah, the system we talked about, as you heard, is the MBPTI. And so yeah, go and check it out, and you'll find out the rest of it on our website, as we said. In the meantime, what I wanted to do is remind you that as we go through this war, COVID, do what you can. You know, wash your hands, as we say, wear a mask as we're being asked, and make sure that you're safe as you go out there. As you realize, as you heard earlier today, numbers are starting to come back down again. And as we continue to do this, as we continue to do the work that we are asked to do, we can protect each other, we can protect our neighbors, and we can also help to create a more safe place and hope for this COVID to be over soon. So yeah, remember to do that. Remember, like for us, we're shooting, we're outside every day, and so we try to do that everywhere we go. And the people that we talk to are doing the same thing. So Toronto have understood what this is, and so we hope that you're doing the same thing wherever you are. We hope that you're going to be able to join us again tomorrow. For now, this is the program. And so let's hope to see you here. In the meantime, share our program, let your friends know that we are here. The AfriCanadian Resource Center is here to bring you daily updates on COVID-19, daily updates on resources available in the AfriCanadian community, and also to make sure that everybody has access to these details as we do every night. So we hope to see you tomorrow. Until then, have a good night.